Want to hear something scary? Upper and Lower Melinda. The following story was inspired by a submission from Sophie. I lived in a small town. Like most small towns, it had its fair share of urban legends. The one that fascinated me the most was the legend of Upper and Lower Melinda. Back in the 1800s, when the town was first founded, Melinda was a woman who was accused of being a witch. One day, Melinda's home was broken into by an angry mob of townsfolk. They grabbed her, tied her hands, and dragged her from her house to the center of town, all the while she kicked and screamed, insisting she was innocent. When they reached the gallows, the executioner tied a noose around her neck. Any last words? Yes, she said. Mark my words. You are making a huge mistake. And as long as the two halves of my body touch, the people of this town will be forever cursed. Shouts erupted from the crowd as Melinda was strung up and took her final breath. Typically in this town, when a woman was hung for being a witch, her body was then cut in half. The town's elders believed this stopped the spread of dark magic that may have prevented the witch from being killed. Terrified of her curse, the townsfolk then buried the two halves of her body far away from each other. The upper half of her body was buried on the edge of town, but her lower half was buried in a secret location unknown to anyone except the person who buried it. Now, about 200 years later, the whereabouts of her lower half are still unknown. Some people believe it's because whenever you visit Upper Melinda's resting place, her lower half crawls closer and closer to it. I wasn't sure if I believed any of this, but I love a good spooky legend. So one fall afternoon, I decided to pay a visit to Upper Melinda to see if there really was a marked grave. I traveled to the old abandoned barn all the way at the edge of town. As soon as I reached the tomb, the clear autumn sky turned dark and gray. The breeze quickly gained speed and swirled around her, and I could have sworn I heard the wind sound like a whisper. You set me free. Then everything returned to the way it was. I thought it was such a creepy coincidence. The next morning, my alarm didn't go off, so I woke up late. I realized that I had missed my bus, so my mom offered to take me to school. When we got there, we learned that the bus I was supposed to be on was in an accident. Apparently, the bus driver had forgotten to take his insulin that morning and went into shock behind the wheel, causing the bus to crash. Several students were seriously injured, and one was killed. I felt horrible, but also very lucky. And over the next month, strange things kept happening all over town. Car accidents, house fires, power outages. Everyone around me was either getting horribly injured or brutally murdered. But somehow, I was immune to all the bad luck. Then I remembered the night I visited Upper Melinda. The legend. The voice. You set me free. I was the final visit that brought Melinda's two halves back together. And now, everyone in town was cursed, except for me. I should be happy that nothing bad is going to happen to me, but I'm not. I still have to watch my loved ones suffer and die gruesome, unjustified deaths. And that was its own curse.